my ex in 2017 beat me up in my sleep with the kids in bed with me. We were planning on leaving, and at that time, I didn't know anything about the law or anything like that. I had contacted secretly domestic violence projects, DAP, I think it's called, and they tried to tell me, plans to try and leave, but didn't work out that way. So no one tells you, fast forward later, that if they draw out the custody battle, how the abuse can escalate through court. His supervised vision was lifted in 2021, I'm sorry. And my son started coming home with gigantic handprints. I mean, gigantic handprints. And uh, gigantic bruises on his chin, golf-sized bruises on the inner thighs of his legs. And I knew enough about Fort to not raise too much, but when my son starts coming home like that and is terrorized, tell you terrorized, I didn't wasn't allowed to show it in court. But when I had to force him to go to his dad's, he started hitting his head against the window, 4 years old. And of course, I stopped. I showed the cops, I'm not bringing him. I
Mhm.
can't do it. And they reported it. They didn't call it in as like they saw the bruises on him. The pediatrician called DCP&P, but I was told that if I didn't send him, I was going to be held in contempt and I could lose custody. So I sent him. I got sanctioned and I was in trouble and I had to send him for 12 days. And it's when after the 12 days were up, my daughter and I went to go pick him up. It's an hour and a half drive in between where he lives in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. And on the way back, I thought it was just because he was crying so much when I went to come pick him up. He thought that I was dead, screaming across the parking lot, running to me. And Chloe, while I was driving, said, "Mom, his lips are turning blue."
Oh, no.
And his face was all red and he wasn't breathing right. And so we immediately brought him to Southern Ocean County Hospital. And to make a long story short, even the ER doctor said that he was left with severe bronchitis, RSV, double ear infection, you name it, on a breathing tube, sitting there. And I hate saying this, but at that time is when all the press was about Corey. So seeing Caden and Corey, and in my gut, and I will stand on the stand, and I stand it when I go to court all the time. I was not sending my son one more time. I knew something horrible was going to happen to him, and he was going to be dead. And so the court kept letting it go and letting it go and letting it go, and kept asking me to get a lawyer. And my ex-husband started his jail sentence. They reduced it to weekends or 3 days a week. And for some reason, they said that I didn't show up to a court hearing, which is impossible. And he got sole custody of my son while he was in jail serving a sentence for what he did and hurt the children.
It's so insane.
It's
He
insane.
he
And it
won
doesn't,
custody while he's in jail for assaulting you.
yes, yeah. And my biggest thing that I tell everybody, and it's so important, is even if you have a lawyer, read the laws,
Yeah.
educate yourself so good. It might not look like it's going to help, but the more I learn, the less they have power over me. And maybe I haven't gotten my son back yet, but they at least know not to go as far as they were before because of what I'm willing to do. So to make a long story short, my ex had the sole custody, but still, Pennsylvania would not charge me with interference with the custody order.
Okay.
I think they knew that what was going on was really wrong, and they knew that I was a huge advocate for myself, and contacting you, and I think maybe standing up for myself did cause a little bit of strife in the court, but it is what it is. My ex got around that by filing I don't know where he got the piece of paper yet from, but he got a New Jersey Amber Alert application, filled it out, my picture, my son's picture. Anyway, so he filed the fake Amber Alert application as looking active, not in New Jersey, went all the way back to Pennsylvania to a different judge and got a PFA.
Mhm.
And at that point, then he drove all the way back down to Waretown in Ocean County, who he had some friends that he went to college with in Pennsylvania, and had me arrested.
And did he have hadn't he filed for custodial interference and the judge denied it? But then he
Yes,
took that document and tried to give it to law enforcement to say you were doing custodial interference. Is that right?
exactly. Yep. So his lawyer, who I'm not scared to say his name, is Scott Lisgar. Awful. And I've investigated him. He does this a lot. He'll write petitions that look like they're granted, that the judge is going to grant them, and doesn't. And that's what he sent. So it looked like he said, and it's so odd. It says custodial interference, jail for how many days, loss of license, a whole bunch of other stuff, and a big denial. Not only just one denial order, it's three orders that were denied by our custody judge.
Okay.
And not only that, from the district attorney's office also denied them.
Mhm.
So then he came over to a little town who had no business filing a felony. And I have all the discovery, and it's obnoxious. It's disgusting what they did, because in fact, if you really want to criminalize custodial interference, I had an upcoming court hearing that was for February 28th of 2022 to counteract how my ex got sole custody. So
Right.
they arrested me 2 weeks before that. Or
Mhm.
I
Because with
so
your hearing coming. Mhm.
yes, so that's interference with the custody order
Right, in real terms,
in
exactly.
real terms. And
Mhm.
I and it was awful.